Once you get used to it.
That's true, I never started. So I'm not-
All right, let's call this meeting to order.
Call to order.
Mr. Cameron.
All right. Invocation. I guess that's me. Yep. Can we stand for invocation or do we sit? Yeah, I guess we're going to need to stand for pledge of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we're gathered today to do the work of the board, to provide guidance to the administration as well as our thanks, administration and staff, as well as our thanks for all that they do. As we move into this holiday season, the service that we provide, the service that RTA provides, seems all the more important in this season of giving, but also the season of work, the season of delivering services to people all over. Please help guide us in our deliberations. We give thanks for all that you've offered to us this past season. Amen.
Amen.
The pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did you and I repeat
Well, that
that?
invocation really
Is that a heavy coat or what?
Cheers, Marvin.
Everybody okay?
Those medicoats are.
Did you got your evaluation
Medicoats
for
are
me?
heavy.
Do you want to get an extra one and do it here?
I tried to get little one for years.
Let's see.
No, he gave up one. Once he got one,
Mickey
he won't
needs
take
one
it off.
probably.
We already got one.
Somebody's skin.
We handed him
Okay.
Marvin's.
One for Marvin.
And Marvin, you have your conflict of interest form.
Okay.
All right, could we have a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Catherine Angelo.
Here.
Heather Edwards.
Here.
Darrell Icott.
Present.
Wilbur James.
Oh, he's here.
He's
Come
here.
on.
Lily G. Johnson. Marvin
Mickey.
King.
Here.
Joseph Lazaro.
Here.
Rob Sheehan.
Here.
Bernard Silverman.
Here.
Randall Wallace.
Here.
Audrey Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, not only do we have a quorum, we have the entire board.
Wow.
First time in a
All
while.
right. Where did Mickey go? You left his hat here.
He'll be back, he
He'll
lift
be
his
back.
hat. Entire board.
Okay,
Wonderful.
thank you very much. We have our one visiting visitor. No? Do we have any comments from our visitor?
No, Sid Nicholas, great concerned citizen.
Okay. Well, we missed your input, that's for sure. And we're always happy to see you. Brian, do we have any employee recognition?
No, we will be doing departmental employees of the quarter and employees of the year at the holiday party this weekend.
Great. And I apologize twice, I will not be at the holiday party. My wife's mother needs some help in Erie, so we're leaving tomorrow to drive up there. We'll be back not until Sunday.
Be
so
safe.
I apologize. I've been hearing these periodic weather reports every hour about the snow going through the mountains and all this kind of stuff, so I'm married to the weather lady. If you would take a look at the agenda, and I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda or modify it.
I move you to the agenda. Second.
All those approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so the agenda is approved.
Make sure you give it to us.
Could I ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the October meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. So we will accept them as written. Service Pack Committee Report and Finance Committee Report. To be honest, we've just had both those meetings. And as I look around, other than Mickey, I think. Nope.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do you want to do a wrap up? Brian?
A wrap up of
Well, we
Just talk about
finance
it.
committee.
Why don't we,
I think the highlights of the finance committee were in 25 words or less.
Yes.
Don't count.
To go in a minute.
We looked through October financials, and you'll see on in those financials that we are running a little hot on labor costs. No doubt, a lot of things happened in October and subsequently in November, that just made them pretty expensive months, but I think, either way, we are looking at doing a budget revision. And that budget revision was also discussed in the Finance Committee. And there are a number of factors that need to go into that, labor cost being one, but we're looking at a number of other aspects of the budget, and we'll be back at Finance Committee in January with some numbers to discuss.
And Brian, at the January board meeting, will you have finances for November and December?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We got preliminaries for November already anyway, so we'll,
Okay.
And so then we did talk a little bit about sort of some of those factors that are going on in the budget. There are some complicating issues going on with our FMO transaction. This is related to the 2 international buses that we parked way back when, trying to get the federal equity moved to something else, or essentially paying the FTA back for that federal equity. And so I won't go through the gory details. We talked about it pretty much at length, but we've got some decisions to make as to how we're going to fix that finding, which is the last FMO finding that's still open from our FMO back in 2016. So how we're addressing fare box issues is part of that budget. So what else my notes say?
Well, and we had some positive news. It looks as if the fare box jamming seems to have been reduced, either probably because of both improvements that have been occurring, cleaning and fixing the machines, but also the humidity has been much lower.
Right, the weather's helped, so.
And
That wasn't 25 words, but
any
I knew
questions?
it wouldn't be.
Any other questions about the financials for the budget? And Ms. Lily Jean, you had 3 items on for the PAC committee, entertainment shuttle strategy, bus stop designation project update, and paratransit scheduling. You want to hit the highlights on the entertainment shuttle?
Okay, I think it is a recommendation that the summer schedule remains the same, and we would not consider any fare, but the focus would be for 2020, and there were a number of items discussed in reference to that. Do we need to vote on the recommendation about the shuttle, or that's just the consensus of the board?
I think it's just a consensus of the board. I don't think it's a vote to continue doing what we've been doing.
Okay.
But we certainly had enough text in our previous minutes to suggest our concern about that. So if we simply note in the minutes that the board had a consensus that we would continue both the hours and the no cost to the ridership.
Okay.
Brian, do you want to hit bus stop designation?
Yeah, we're on the cusp of finally getting some signs installed out there on the road. AECom is diligently working through SCDOT and the city of Myrtle Beach. The first task order includes all the stops on Route 10, which is the bus that serves Oak Street and Broadway at the beach and Coastal Grand Mall, and Highway 15 in Myrtle Beach, as well as stops at the transit centers in Myrtle Beach as well as in Conway. So we'll have a sign out here in the front of this building. We do still plan to have a ribbon cutting of some sort, but we are working through some questions from the city of Myrtle Beach on sort of how we're implementing them, and so we want to get through that conversation before we pulled the trigger on actually putting stops in the ground. So, but we're getting close, we're getting really close. And then the only other thing on that is we've incorporated some improvements to the area outside this building to do away with the rocks and shorten, kind of clean up the planted area out there between the sidewalk and the building, just to make it safer and a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So we're incorporating that into the contract with AE.
Did we do anything with the walkway? Wasn't it in bad shape at one time?
The sidewalk's in pretty good shape. You know that the city's done much, but they may have not too long ago.
No, the walkway in, between the flower thing and our building, wasn't there a problem with the walkway?
It's not really the walkway, it's the area between the sidewalk and the building.
Oh,
And it's built up in some areas and it's got rocks, like those white river rock type
oh, okay.
Ground covering, end up on the sidewalk and then the road.
Okay.
We just need to clean it up a little bit.
We didn't have any problem with flooding this year with the inside.
Now you better knock on wood.
And I will attribute that to Tom Berta strategically placing some sandbags out there on the drainage ditch between us and the bank. Would not, I mean, we had 18 inches here for Joaquin, which was at 2015, and nothing happened. So we've had the garage get a couple of inches before.
Now,
Rain event that was local.
The city or the state clean out those drainage, or didn't they do something like
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe, but yeah, we've done pretty well from that perspective.
We also have an update on paratransit that bleeds over to an update on the Annunciation. So, Brian, you want to?
Yeah, we've hit the ground running with EcoLane, which is the company that is providing new paratransit software. It's software designed to really work on real-time scheduling the day of, in fact, of trips that are scheduled on our system. It's coming with a number of improvements to how we deal with customers, helps with customer service. I'm hopeful that it's gonna help us with how we're scheduling drivers. That's probably the biggest goal for me is, because I think there's a lot of instances where paratransit drivers have to work a 12, 13-hour day just to get paid for 9 hours or, that type of thing. We wanna try to get away from that. So it's coming, it's due to be implemented on February 1st. We have weekly meetings with the consultant, or with the company that's providing it. This is true push-button scheduling, so my goal is to educate that system as much about Myrtle Beach traffic and travel times and loading times and all that, to make it as good as it can be. As we talked about, there will be hiccups, I'm sure, but I'm really excited that it's going to help us, and it's not coming a moment too soon. We had the highest ridership in October for paratransit that we have all year, in the last 12 months. So people are really utilizing the system, and we're going to need to be as efficient as possible so that expenses don't go through the roof. So, and then the ancillary benefit is we're purchasing the software via a grant from the state. There's no local funds in it. It's completely federal and state funded project. And in it, there's some money to make some hardware improvements. And so one issue we had with implementing EcoLane is that the tablets that they use were not, actually, the tablets that we used with ride systems on fixed route were not compatible with the tablets that we're using on EcoLane. And it's important that we have one tablet for a paratransit vehicle, because those could show up on fixed route as well as on paratransit. So we're going to be able to homogenize our entire fleet of tablets. Tablets will be put into lockable docking stations, so they'll be assigned to a vehicle. And they'll be capable of running both sets of software for stop enunciation as well as
Which means I think we'll probably see kind of a decline or not much improvement on the enunciation until such time as we get those tablets and get them up and installed. They're going to be locked, bolted into each bus, each vehicle, so they should be secure. But then at that point, we will then connect them to the enunciation system, and we should have better work. Bernie, who rides the bus fairly often, had reported a number of instances where there was no enunciation. And we've had troubles with the enunciation program from the get-go. It was not as simple as we had thought that it would be, because we also brought in a whole new fleet of new and different buses at about that same time. And so that took a fair amount of work. But we want to get back to successful enunciation for the ridership. Any other questions about the PAC meeting?
On the enunciation, talking about the system, the loudspeaker system.
Yeah, well, we have the system on the buses that has a global positioning system, GPS, and it's designed to announce the upcoming stop automatically as the bus moves along the route. And so we've had issues with what's called geofencing, which is the announcements either happen too soon or too late or multiple times based on where the bus is and locations. We still have some of those bugs to work out. But I think the bigger issue has been connecting we've been doing connection to the speakers through Bluetooth, so it's been a wireless connection to the speakers, as well as depending on the batteries for those tablets rather than connecting them to power. And we were going to resolve both of those issues by hardwiring them to power and to the speakers when we get these new tablets through the docking station.
Well, let me ask another question in reference to that. Now, the enunciation system is it's a good concept. Is there like a visible sign that people can read on front of the
No,
bus?
it's audible. It's audible. So no, we don't.
I was just wondering, is that, have you ever seen that before?
Yeah, they do a sign.
Where people can look up and see when they can see when the next start come up?
Yeah, we have them around here too sometimes.
Well, I was just asking, I didn't,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like we have less problem with that than you would an enunciation system, wouldn't it?
Well, some people can't read.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
They're riding the bus.
Everybody can't
it
hear it either.
requires the audible announcement. It doesn't require the written announcement.
The enunciation system is federally mandated. We should be doing that. We should have been doing it for right along. You know, as part of the RTA agreement.
Yeah.
Well, I was just curious, because
Yeah.
she said everybody can't read, everybody can't hear either, so
Yeah.
it's a two-way street. But anyway, I was just curious about it, because I know some places you have a sign that tell you the next stop,
Yeah.
if you know where you're going.
All right. Brian, would you care to give us the board, the manager's report?
Yeah, I just said a few things to make you all aware of. We kind of put the whole FMO transaction to bed in finance, so I won't really go through that too much. We did have our state review, which is basically the same review as a training review, but we're talking about the rural system as opposed to the urban system. When the feds come, they're mostly concerned about the urban system. And the state review went very well. It was originally scheduled for the week of the hurricane, so obviously we canceled that. And they did most of their review basically on desktop. We sent them several gig, possibly a terabyte of files. And so they came basically, when was that, last Tuesday?
Last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday, and they were only here for half a day and had no findings. We gave them some additional information, and so they're looking at the same things that a triennial would look at. So there's a it's not a deep dive, but there's a little bit of dive on the financial side of things. They're looking at maintenance, they're looking at our operating procedures, things like that, and they were pretty pleased with how things were going. Also part of that discussion, we got some information on their plans for intercity funds. You may remember that there's a slug of money that goes towards intercity transportation that every state receives as part of the 5311 program, our rural program. And so they've identified some routes that they would like to try to get some service on, and two of those routes are in our service area. Ainer to Conway, Myrtle Beach, as well as additional service between Myrtle Beach and Georgetown. And so that'll present an interesting challenge for us. Obviously, if it's not fully funded, you know, those routes aren't fully funded. But
Right.
both
Do
both
they
of
have
those
the
routes
power?
are on our vision.
Do they have the power to mandate that?
They would just make the funding available, and we'll have to make the choice on how we're dealing with it, so.
Fully funded, if they make funds available, would it be an 80-20 or?
Depends. I
You
don't think
told
those
them-
decisions have been made
Okay,
yet.
So it would
So,
be for a limited time, it wouldn't be.
yeah, it wouldn't be for eternity, right?
okay.
You know, the most we could hope for would be 3 years. But it'd be one of those things where, you know, we would probably try to set some ridership thresholds and.
Yeah, and that's one of those things, once you start it, 3 years later, it's hard to pull the plug on it.
So it's moderately better than the SC Works, but very similar to that situation. And I'm hoping that they'll still make some of those funds available for regular rural service, because we could always use additional federal funds into that part of our program. Short of a few any questions on state review? It went really well.
I think congratulations.
They're really happy.
This is like the second clean audit in a row for an agency that didn't have much of a track record being able to pull this sort of thing off. So I'll speak as chair of the board, and we're very proud of what you've all done to pull that off. And you know, those auditors are they look hard and deep at things, so it's good to know.
And, you know, the big hitters are procurement, so Kevin's doing a really good job on the procurement side. Obviously, how we're doing our indirect cost rate and our procedures. She said she'd never seen procedures for audits.
Yeah, she was
Before.
impressed by that.
It's like,
Funny.
wow, okay. You know, so Ron had a huge part of that. Pam had no findings on drug and alcohol, which is a huge thing in a long time. Nothing on triennial, and then maintenance. I think he said we were missing inspection reports, or monthly inspection reports for fire extinguishers on the bus. So he's digging pretty deep.
Yeah, hey, that's the
Pretty
only
deep.
thing, that's
So
okay.
we'd done the annual recharging, but we hadn't done our, so, you know, it's one of those things where you gotta find something. And so it's pretty good deal.
Well, congratulations to you all for that.
Very good, Brian.
A couple of things that we've talked about in the past, there hasn't been a whole lot of movement on the funding equity plan. I think that's something that we do need to work on. My goal is to get in front of the managers, city managers and county managers, including North Myrtle Beach and others, on figuring out a way to equitably distribute our revenues throughout the system, and have it being based on where we're spending our money.
Or we're earning our money.
Where we're earning our money. So that's something that I haven't done a whole lot on it. I have had tangential conversations with Chris Eldridge and others, but you know, obviously it's not high on their radar. But it's something that we need to do during calendar year 19, so that once our note is paid off, you know, we have some ideas on how we're going to expand service and get paid for those
You'll have the
expansions.
shelter money paid off, hopefully, you know, within that same time frame. So there is cash you can look forward to
That's
seeing.
right.
Well, that equity priority might get higher on their list when they get to their budget time and they see that that money is missing from their budget. And,
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially. The facility RFP is also on my list, my to-do list. the scope is written. I do want to host a meeting among our partner agencies. We got somebody from Public Works, from the county, planners from Conway and Myrtle Beach, representative from McCog, and I haven't really talked to Georgetown County yet, but I'll get somebody from there as well to help us make a decision on our facility due diligence.
Is my memory correct that that grant had to be in by January 1?
The grant has to be executed by September 30th
Oh,
of 19.
okay.
But,
Do we have a deadline for RFP by January 1 or December 31?
I don't know that I'm gonna make it, so, I wanna give consultants time to be able to touch base with these representatives so that they,
Is it a required date for?
No, it's
Oh,
not.
okay.
It's not
So
required.
it's just your own plan?
I think that was just my timeline that I wanted to get. I definitely would like to get it on the street in the first quarter of the calendar year, so by March 31st.
I have another question about COG and GSATs. The transit planner is a woman, Elizabeth, I can't think.
Elizabeth Tucker.
Yeah, is there something that we need to, are we communicating with her? I mean,
We are.
We're the transit agency and she's the transit planner.
Yeah, well, and it's always been a bit of a contention for me that the COG is using, I don't know, it's 5 or 6% off the top of our 5307. And then off of the 5310 and not, besides getting a TIP, a Transportation Improvement Program and a long-range plan, that's all we seem to get, so.
Well, can we call her, we need services, here's what we need, or here's.
Well, there's a couple of things,
Maybe
there's
we
a couple
should
of
ask her to
things.
come into the board
Yeah.
and introduce herself to us.
There's a couple of things on their plate that we need their help on. One is gonna be, we're getting closer and closer to a day when Brunswick County is gonna be using some of their federal money. And I don't have the bandwidth to do that grant work, so it's gonna have to be them, and they're the ones getting the administrative money to do
They're
it.
getting the money right on the
Right.
top of that.
And so then I have gotten an email from Mark Howeller, Elizabeth's boss, on, they have some leftover 5307 that they're looking to spend, and I said, well, yeah, I need a fare structure study. So, and then I got silence, I got crickets chirping on the other end of the line. So I do want to force their hand a little bit on that, that would be money well spent.
I questioned them on them taking the money off the top, and I said, what do you do for this money? And they said, nothing. I said, you mean we're doing the work and you're getting the money?
Well, there was no work at one time when we
Well,
first
there will
made that
be.
deal, right?
And the money is still there.
Yeah.
They've done one grant under 5307, so in the past, since I've been here, they've spent about, I guess, 180,000. And it's staffing, and some of that is for the,
What we
for
found
the
out when they
planning
were,
documents that they
when we
do.
found out when they were here, they really didn't know what they were doing, and Wilmington was taking a lot of their money and they didn't even know it.
Yeah,
They were
I
doing
would hope they didn't say
right.
that, because I don't know that that's accurate.
Well-
I think Wilmington would like to take some of the money.
Well, I
And
don't
we
know.
do have some issues with NCDOT on where those dollars are being used.
Oh,
But
okay.
I will help them fight that fight, because those are
Okay.
regional decisions and,
All right, well,
know.
that's what was
yeah.
said at the table here when they were here.
Yeah.
I think the suggestion to invite her to come to a board meeting and either present their work scope or listen to the issues that you've got in mind with the leadership of your board behind you would be very
All right, and we
useful.
should know who she is, because the whole board, I've never met her, I don't even,
I've never met her.
No, and I think she should come here.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. Maybe a February or a March board meeting.
Okay.
Brian,
And
GSAT,
I'll be sure to inform them what they're walking into.
yeah, on GSAT, their priority list, we have a number of items, like down 14, 15, 16, 17. How did things get on that priority list? I've set in for Rob a couple of times, I'm not sure of the process. But all the coast things are way down that list.
Yeah, but their signage.
Yeah, but they're also formula funds. So they don't have to be prioritized because the money's already been identified for them.
Okay.
So the priority list is important for things like surface transportation program money, where we might have $5 million to spend as a region, and they're trying to fit $5 million worth of road projects into it.
Right.
That's where the prioritization comes from.
Okay.
And so now there will come a day where maybe we wanna go after some of that SDP, and we gotta hop in, so we say, look, this project needs to be funded, we think it's eligible for SDP, throw it into your hopper and run it through your evaluation process and see where it lands in the priority process.
And that's another reason why she should be here, because she should know that,
But the
that
item-
we're behind this, that we're interested and we're gonna plug, you know.
The items that Daryl mentions that we're on that list are signage. It's basically our fixed stop
It is a-
program. And I
right.
think they just tossed it on there knowing that we were providing our own funding.
Well, they toss it on there because it's a federal requirement. I can't get my
Okay.
grant approved unless it's in the
As long
TIP.
as long as it's on that list
As long as it's
somewhere.
in there, we're good to
Okay.
go.
All right,
All right.
that makes
And
sense.
if I'm not mistaken, I think that list, the surface thing, is not our project so much, are generated in the study committee. That's the committee that we don't go to, that Ryan is a member of.
Yeah, well, that and SCDOT feeds them with projects. You know, there's very little money, I mean, in the old days, pre-95, let's say, there was quite a bit of money that came to the region as formula money, and the region decided where it goes. And they've reduced, a lot of states have reduced the amount of money that's going just to the region. And so they have their congressional balancing for, you know, state road fees as well as federal road fees. That all happens sort of at the state level, and then the state kind of dictates to the regions what those projects are gonna be. And so that the whole MPO process has kind of been downgraded a little bit, just because of the lack of the amount of dollars that they have to shuffle around. So, you know, another thing that's gonna be coming out of the MPO process is we do need to look very hard at the formula for distributing 5307 funds within the region. Because if you base it on, if you reapply the federal formula into our regional level, then North Carolina's gonna get more dollars than they can use. And so, to me, I don't mind, you know, saving those dollars for a certain number of years, but if they don't have a project, you know, we're certainly not gonna allow any of those funds to sunset.
Is that
And it could
because
be-
they've already put so much money into roads in North Carolina?
No, I mean, it's just a small demand response type transit system there that they don't really have much service in the urbanized area, which is
Right.
basically Charlotte South.
Right.
And so, they don't, you know, we've been preserving dollars for them based on some formula that I wasn't a part of. That, you know, that's in FTM, and there's probably, let's see, we have probably $450,000 in unobligated funding under 5307. There's another $1 million in there for North Carolina and the MPO
Well,
that has been
Is
unobligated.
there still a
Sunsets
woman
when?
in charge
Well,
of
it
this?
doesn't really ever sunset because FTA does a first in, first out process. So we're spending those dollars, but then regionally, we preserve the dollars back to, you know, what the federal regs dictate in terms of how long it takes the money to sunset. Right now, 5307 sunsets, I think in year 5 after the year it was obligated. So it's essentially available for 6 years. So we're in 18. So we're going back to 2014 to make sure that we're preserving dollars for North Carolina. And at some point, I'm gonna say, look, those dollars should no longer be available because North Carolina did not have a project
Right, so
for it.
then can we use it for our
So then
project?
can we use it? So 13 technically was available. 13 and 14 are technically available. And I got a letter from the Brunswick Transit folks, we can't use this money, go ahead and let Coast RTA use it. And we want to be a team player. If they have a project that needs a little boost one year, I'd be happy to help
Right.
make sure that they can do it.
But to lose the money.
But I'm not gonna lose any dollars,
No.
and if they don't have a project, then I could certainly use the dollars.
Is that same woman still in charge? They do a lot of advertisement because I know at different stores up there.
Yvonne,
Yeah, they have papers in all the stores, you know.
So COG has been, I've been on the phone with COG a number of times, that they've been getting a little bit of pressure from NCDOT on using those funds and making sure that the funds that are essentially reapplying the federal formula regionally, which is a higher dollar amount than what we've agreed to in our funding agreements. But I have a concern that, well, A, they don't really have a dog in the hunt. They don't have a vote on the regional MPO. These are MPO dollars, and they want to use it for stuff in Wilmington. That's not this region, so that's off limits.
Oh, so they've never used them for, well.
No, but they would like to. And it might be Brunswick County, but it's not in our urbanized area.
Right, I know that, I know that.
That doesn't cover the whole Brunswick County.
No, it doesn't.
No.
It's just the extreme,
It's
it's a little bit of Charlotte and the beaches.
Yeah,
Well, maybe if we straighten it out and let this woman, this transit planner, know where we stand, maybe we'll.
but to let her
They
know
know-
that we're,
they
you
know
know,
where
we're
I
looking
stand.
over our shoulder. We're looking over our shoulder,
Right.
we wanna make sure that we're in the game here, you
Yeah.
know?
It's just, and all I was trying to, the reason why I got into that whole diatribe is because those discussions haven't happened yet. So I haven't been able to sit at the table with NCDOT to let them know what's what, but I will be.
Let me interject something here right quick. I'm trying to make sure I interpret what you're saying closely. Katie said let her know that we're in the game. What stipulation you gonna let her know, indicate to her that we're in the game?
To
No.
whom, to you, or?
I don't,
No, this is for the cop.
no, that's the question, maybe I'm hearing two different things then, must be then. Because I know Katie was saying about that woman, let her know that we're in the game. Who's she talking about? The
The
cog
woman
lady?
for the cop.
Yeah, the transit planner for,
Yeah.
the COG.
We have a place at the table. We're both on the steering committee as well as the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is our chair sits on that.
Yeah.
Which is GSAT's, that's what the Grand Strand
Area
Area Transportation Study.
Right.
And so these are just like the 5307 funds that come to us, our urban program, actually get filtered through the COG. They are what's called the designated recipient. We are just a direct recipient. So we have a direct relationship with FTA, but the way those monies are distributed within the region, because now there's more than one player, there's us and Brunswick Transit, have to be distributed in a fair and equitable manner by the MPO. So that's what she means when we're in the game. Is that we're part of that formula, we get to weigh in on what that formula looks like, and we have a say in how those dollars get spent.
Okay,
And
so, okay, since you haven't said all of that, and my question is, because I'll make sure I'm clear on what I'm understanding. If she was invited here, what would she say different than what you just said? If she was, if I'm correct, the lady, we want to invite the lady here, if I'm correct.
Want to introduce,
No, listen, let me finish, please.
Not much.
No, what I'm saying is, if we're going to invite her here, what would be the difference is the formula that she got to go by anyway. So what's she going to do different than by just saying hello and how you doing? We never saw you before. What can she do different? That's my question.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple things. One, we're always tangentially involved in the transportation planning for the region. For instance, they write the long-range plan. So I think one thing would be good for you guys to see is just a little rundown on what our long-range plan says, which that would be interesting as long as it didn't take too long. The plan that they just rewrote the plan. So they just said, I mean, it's a 30-year plan. So I think instead of 2040, it goes out to 2050 now. But the 2040 plan had streetcar system from the wheel out to the old mall site, and it had another a streetcar system that went down into Market Common. So I took all that out because none of that's happening in my lifetime. But I weighed in on, I basically wrote their transit section, but it does still include a short steel wheel trolley from the super block over to Ocean Boulevard, a little quarter mile, half mile kind of attraction kind of thing. And that could connect our transit facility someday to the beach. Things like that I think would be good from a transportation perspective. But that's just one element of a document that covers sidewalks, roads, airports, ground transportations at airports, you know, all this encompassing stuff that, and that's how, I mean, it governs how we spend our transportation dollars.
Plus, if we want like a fare box study by the COG, you know, she may be the person to carry it forward.
Well,
She's at the budget meetings with the COG, we're not.
right. So yeah, I mean, that's something that I would probably want to talk to them before they came and talk to you, that we would want to have that kind of hammered out on what we're going to do. She could present that.
Why don't you let us know when you've reached out and had that contact, and then we'll go ahead and schedule a meeting after that.
Okay.
Anything
Did I
else?
answer your question, Mickey?
Yeah, Mickey, I was just curious, you know, because I'm listening and I think, you know, when we sit down to meet people, I think if it's gonna be an asset,
Right.
what we're trying to achieve, I'm willing to listen. But if it's just something that's gonna be just tedious, I mean, I don't, you know.
One thing, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this about the COG. They have preserved our money for this facility due diligence project. There's $800,000 sitting at FTA that is as a result of the region giving us those dollars. And so, I mean, that's huge for us. And they could have easily, you know, gone to FTA and said we want it back and put it back into their SD, because that's SDP money, that is Surface Transportation Program money, and put it back into a road project. So for that, I am grateful.
Anything else on your
That for our building?
That's for the facility, yeah, to start getting down towards the new facility.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let everybody know that we're, I do have a couple more items. We have this grant with the state. It's another grant that is all state and federal dollars for facility improvements. We got some shelving in our inventory section. We got, I'm trying to think of what else is on there, I'm spacing. We got a power washer, so we have a little bit more horsepower in terms of cleaning buses, and this is a unit that we can take with us. The forklift came, that's part of that. You all are welcome to walk back and see the new shiny forklift. We have put it out to everybody in maintenance, and the first person that puts a scratch on it has to buy a steak dinner for the entire department plus the general manager. But it's finally here and it's saving us steak dinner. And so the last piece of that RFP, or the last piece of that grant, is to do an RFP for maintenance software. So that's another thing that we need and we'll take with us, and something that we'll talk a little better with Sage, and it'll add some components into it that we don't have now, such as fuel and tires, into our database. Two other items. I went to a task board meeting last week, and there was a couple things on that. And there's really two things that came out of that meeting that I just wanted you all to know about. The VW settlement, the money that the state's getting as a result of VW's transgressions with the EPA, let's put it that way, is resulting into a $33 million revenue to the state of South Carolina. And so they have now put out the regs for how those dollars are going to be distributed. Buses are eligible for these funds. So we're working out whether or not Task is going to sort of jointly put out. You can use it as 100% money, but projects that are commingling other dollars with the VW money are going to get higher priority. And it's all being run through the Department of Insurance. Figure that one out. I'm not sure why they
Is that for the whole
Whole state.
whole state?
Just the
Just the
state.
state, oh, okay.
Different, Volkswagen had to pay the EPA for, I don't know, someone, it was like $500 million. And so those dollars are being split up among the states. And South Carolina's portion.
do?
They,
About their fuel usage thing.
no, it was, it's an
Emissions
emissions
system.
thing.
Diesel.
They designed the emission systems to do better while it's being, at the RPMs for testing. So they were
From
trying to
country to
usurp
country,
the
yeah.
rules.
How can we spend the money?
We can spend it on, I mean, I think the biggest thing for transit is buses, and it's 100% money. Although they're gonna side with projects that leverage other dollars. So that's out there, and we're working with Task on whether or not we want to do a joint application, or that's something that Coast RTA could apply for. And I'm still educating myself on the rules. The other thing that came out, and this is something that's sort of longer range that kind of hit me, Comment is currently in a lawsuit with somebody in town there in Columbia who's well-funded on the use of their penny sales tax, sales and use tax. They get a quarter penny in Richland County. And the lawsuit is predicated on what I would call fairly poor language in the legislation that allows them to go out for referendum. The same legislation we would be governed by if we were to ever go out for referendum. And the lawsuit centers on being able to use those funds for operations, operating expenses. The guy does not have an issue with using it for capital, but he doesn't think they should be using it for operating funds. And currently in their budget, they use about 13 million of 18 million a year for operating expenses.
You're doing great.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks.
Merry Christmas.
So that is, and I think if you sort of extrapolate that to us, the same type of lawsuit could be made for the road use fee that we're using. So they, Comment brought it to task to just get some support from us on their defense. And I think really the bigger thing is getting the legislation changed. The legislation, it's chapter 37, I haven't even read it yet, it's my understanding that it's very vague in terms of using it for operating. And the point that I would make to any legislator is that we don't have any other sources for operating funds. Most, like Comment is a large enough system where they can only use a very small percentage of their federal dollars for operating. And we're not necessarily in that boat because we're grandfathered, but we could move into that boat if we ever got significantly bigger. And so I would like to engage McNair on helping me kind of formulate a message to the legislative delegation on this supporting Comment, supporting changes in chapter 37, and putting it to the delegation in terms of this is how it could affect this agency.
We don't have a referendum.
No, but we're talking about funds that are generated very similarly, and they're used, typically road use fees are used for capital projects. So I don't think it's a direct correlation, I just think it could be a correlation. And if A, the lawsuit is successful, or B, people get wind of it in Charleston or here or in Greenville, this could present a real problem for transit agencies in the future. Because this is the only source that you're getting. The federal and state sources for operating funds are drying up. I mean, even us, we have to reduce our dependence on 5307 for operating, just because of the way that the budget lays out. And so I just think this is really important, and so I'm gonna spend a little bit of money to help Comment, so that it's gonna help us long term.
You mentioned getting the legislators, I'm not sure if next session's assignment been made, but I think Senator Embry in our area was on the transportation committee.
Yeah, didn't Fry just get,
Oh, he got moved up to a whip position.
yeah, so I definitely would like to get him on this conversation, so. And Embry too,
Frank's been in this room before, right, Bernie?
right?
Yeah.
As the, and so I just want to make you all aware of that. But I was glad I went last week to to the task board meeting to hear about that, because I think that's pretty important to all of us in the state. And then last thing for me is, we did have our Coats for Kids thing last Saturday. We gave away 750 coats.
Wow.
Pretty awesome for doing it sort of on the down low. We weren't nearly as, we tried to scale it down a little bit this year just because of staff time and that sort of thing. But Erica did a great job, and I think we gave 600 last year, so she did even better than last year.
Had bad weather too.
Huh?
The weather
Yeah,
was
that
good.
helped.
Yeah.
That probably helped. But so kudos to her and all the volunteers that helped.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
From the bylaws. Number 7K, annual develop and administer a board-approved compensation plan. How are we on that?
That will be part of your budget that you'll see next month.
Okay.
It's not gonna take the same form that it has in years past,
Okay.
but I really do wanna make sure that I've got all my functions squared away on that, so
All right. Just doing my
I'll
job.
be working nights.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, good work.
So that concludes the general manager's report,
I don't,
Mr. Chairman.
okay, any need for an executive session? I'm not aware of any.
I have none.
I don't think so, not from my standpoint.
This man, he has been the chairman of the COG a few years ago. What year?
That's right, that's right.
So he been the chairman of the COG, so he know a lot about how they work too. I thought I'd mention that to you, so we got one on the board that knows about the
Yep.
COG.
Old business, do you have all the evaluation forms, Brian's about now?
No, I don't have all, I need.
I got mine right here. I got it right here.
I need Mickey's and, Marvin.
Marvin, yeah.
Yeah. You don't get one.
Yeah, fine.
Right. And you don't get
I
one.
don't know, I think Randall would give me a good.
That's right.
I know Heather would, I gave her a ride this morning.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's conflict of interest.
Like the way you think.
No, you don't.
Covering the
Conflict
butt.
of
Put your
interest?
number in there.
Are you missing any conflict of interest?
Just put
I
your
think
number in, I'll
everybody
do the
has
vote.
filled it out and turned it in to me
And they don't
today.
require signature, isn't that
No,
strange?
because, well, you put your name on the first
Well,
page,
you can put my name on it.
but it is strange that there's no place to sign.
I had one.
Any pop-up
Yeah,
announcements
got
from
one.
anyone? Being none, we're ready to have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Did I get it?
So move.
There is lunch in there for
Lunch
everybody. if you want a
is
sandwich.
served.
Second,
Second, third, fourth.
all in favor?
Aye.
Good.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Anybody opposed?